I like ramping with lands. Part of this is because I hate it when sweepers blow up my mana rocks, but to be completely honest, I just find it satisfying when I get to slam tons of lands into play, especially when I do it in a color that isn't supposed to be able to do that. It also drives me a bit crazy to constantly hear people say that only green can land ramp. That's just not true. Sure, the other colors have to work a little bit harder to land ramp, but that's alright. Green has to work a bit harder for other things. Okay, green is just very good, but that's besides the point. Blue can land ramp, and it's actually surprisingly good at it. Many of its pieces connect very nicely into the other cards in the package, all while offering great alternative utility. For example, Shoreline Looter is a 2-mana 1/1 rat that can't be blocked. It also lets us loot whenever it deals combat damage to a player, and once we have 7 or more cards in our graveyard, we don't have to loot anymore, we just get to draw instead. This is one of my favorite early utility creatures. It just kind of annoys my opponents a little while creating small bits of value, and it even scales with the length of the game. Now, you might be wondering, what does this guy have to do with ramping? Well, blue has access to lots of these small evasive value creatures, like Malcolm Alluring Scoundrel or Looter Il-Kor, and they are perfect carriers of equipment ramp. Sword of the Animist is a 2-mana artifact that gives a creature +1/+1, and whenever it attacks, we get to search our deck for a basic and put it into play. An Explorer Scope has us look at the top card of our library when we attack with the creature, and if it's a land, we put it into play. Usually, equipment like this has the downside that it doesn't really give any power, and if our opponents have blockers, then, well, we either can't attack or we just have to sacrifice a creature to get the trigger. But not with Shoreline Looter, because it can't be blocked. That turns it from a small value creature to a pretty nasty ramping machine. From here, we have 2 different directions to discuss that both synergistically tie into this idea. The first is a graveyard package centered around flip lands. Our looters are great at passively filling up our graveyard, and that works fantastically with Search for Azcanta and the Everflowing Well. Search for Azcanta is a 2-mana enchantment that lets us surveil in our upkeep. Then, once we have 7 or more cards in our graveyard, we get to transform it into Azcanta the Sunken Ruin, a great land that taps for blue and can help us draw cards. The Everflowing Well then is a 3-mana artifact that, when it enters, mills us 2 cards and lets us draw 2. This is already a fine effect by itself, not great, but fine. But just like Azcanta, the Everflowing Well transforms based on the number of cards in our graveyard, although the condition for it is a bit more difficult, needing 8 permanents in there. Still, this is something that can happen very naturally over the course of a game, and if we work towards it a bit, then we can get there really quickly. And I'm not saying that we need to play a self-mill package. I'm sure you've noticed that all the cards I've mentioned so far play into each other. The looters can carry equipment, and they also fill up our graveyard, something that both Search for Azcanta and the Everflowing Well also contribute to. So we fill up our graveyard and then we flip the 2. And we don't even need to play a deck centered entirely around permanents. Just lands and some creatures will do perfectly fine. By the way, the backside of the Everflowing Well is a blue land that lets us temporarily copy permanent spells, which honestly sounds a lot more powerful than it really is, but it's nice to have. I mostly just care about getting the land. Another card that plays nicely into this graveyard synergy is this weird little freak boy, Dreamscape Artist. Dreamscape Artist is a 2-mana 1/1 with a tap ability that costs 3 mana and requires us to discard a card and sacrifice a land. If we do all that, then we get to search our deck for 2 basic land cards and put them directly into play. This is a repeatable Harrow, and Harrow is just a green ram spell. It's just a green ram spell. It's like literally a green ram spell. It's just good, and it fills up our graveyard while we're at it. It does use a bunch of resources though, so I would really only recommend this in decks where we have a lot of card draw. Finally, I really enjoy Matzalantli the Great Door. This is a 3-mana artifact that lets us tap it to loot. We can also tap it and pay 4 mana to transform it, so long as we have 4 or more permanent types in our graveyard. On the back, we find the Core, an absolutely insane land that taps for as much mana as we have permanents in our graveyard. Matzalantli is definitely a lot more specific than the other cards I've mentioned so far, but it's also so strong in those specific circumstances that I think it deserves the mention. On that note, if you enjoyed the video so far, then maybe it deserves a thumbs up? I would definitely appreciate that. You can also support me directly on Patreon, where I upload lots of bonus content and I offer services like deck reviews. Please check it out, that would be great. Okay, let's go back a little. I said earlier that the looters play nicely into two different paths, the graveyard package being the first. The second is centered around, frankly, a bit of a broken card, Dowsing Dagger. Dowsing Dagger is a 2-mana equipment that also equips for 2 mana and gives +2/+1. When it enters, we have to give an opponent 2/0/2 plant tokens. Most importantly though, when the creature that Dowsing Dagger is equipped to deals combat damage to a player, it transforms into Lost Vale, a land that taps for 3 mana of any one color. Dowsing Dagger is exceptionally strong because we can tap it for mana the moment it flips, refunding most of our investment, and because of our unblockable creatures, flipping it is trivially easy. This is a ramp spell that outperforms most of what green can do. And then we get to the unique qualities of blue. Blue has access to spells that copy lands, specifically copy land and realms sketching. They just let us make a copy of a land, and Lost Vale isn't legendary, so we can have 2 or even 3 of these, each of which taps for 3 mana. Honestly, Lost Vale into copy land is insane, because the copy land is free since it comes into play as an untapped version of the Lost Vale. Of course, all of this is the dream scenario, but honestly, these cards are totally fine, even if we just cast them on a basic. There's a bit of an extension we can take here, by the way, if we really want to commit to it. Copy land makes a copy of a land, but it's also an enchantment. Copy enchantment then makes a copy of an enchantment, so does Mirror Maid. Getting this chain perfectly set up is of course very unlikely, but just imagine Lost Vale, copy land, copy enchantment, Mirror Maid. I think at that point we win the game regardless of life totals. Importantly though, all of these cards are completely playable even without our weird land duplication setup. Copy enchantment and Mirror Maid are just kind of good, regardless of whether or not we get a chance to use them for ramp. That's really the important through line if it comes to blue ramp. Many of the cards we use for it can also serve other purposes, like Ascanta lets us filter our draws, and Realm Sketching can copy a creature. And while we are copying creatures, Solemn Simulacrum and Scampering Surveyor are perfectly fine cards, and they become especially good if we can make more of them. I particularly enjoy Mirror Hole Mimic and Self-Reflection for this, as they are cards we can play out of our graveyard, making our looters even better, since, if we discard a Self-Reflection, did we really discard a card at all? Oh, and we don't actually have to copy the entire creature all the time. Cards like Virtue of Knowledge, Adric, Mathematical Genius, and Gogo Master of Mimicry let us copy activated and triggered abilities. Use them to copy the Solemn ETB, or, even better, copy the activated and triggered abilities of fetch lands. By copying the activated ability of an Evolving Wilds, we get to search our deck for an additional land. That's just ramping. And in the case of Gogo, very efficient ramping. Same mana cost as a Rampant Growth. I actually made a whole video about Gogo if you wanna check that out. There's one more thing that's worth copying, and that's our opponent's ramp. Cards like Narset's Reversal or Twincast can snatch our opponent's Cultivate and even give us a discount on it. This is of course a lot less reliable, but we could also use them to copy a Self-Reflection or Realm Sketching. Or of course, something entirely different that's worth stealing. Again, flexibility is the strength of blue ramp. We don't just have to copy specific things. We can just have a Narset's Reversal and use it as a Narset's Reversal. It's a good card, but keep your mind open for the possibility of just grabbing one of those nasty ramp spells and using them for ourselves. And finally, one of my favorite cards, Mitotic Manipulation. A 3-mana sorcery that lets us look at the top 7 cards of our library and put one of those cards onto the battlefield if it has the same name as a permanent already there. If we have an island, we can grab another island and just put it into play. This is literally a ramp spell. I mean, okay, I guess if you don't play enough basics, then maybe it doesn't work. But I always play a lot of basics because, frankly, I am too lazy to get non-basics into my deck. And also, I like having pretty basics. You can just do cool things with basics. I enjoy them very much. So from my experience, Mitotic Manipulation has worked absolutely fantastically. Also, it has the potential to be very funny. We can use Spike It to give a creature all names of all non-legendary creatures, and then we just cheat something into play. Or, even better, maybe an opponent has already played something we just pulled from the top of our deck, and now we get to slam it for free mana. Anyways, here you have it, blue ramp. I'm not saying you have to do this. It's definitely easier to just play mana rocks, but personally I enjoy the effort that goes into it, and it's much more resilient to sweepers. Planar Cleansing will get rid of an Arcane Signet, but it doesn't hit lands, including lands made by stuff like Copyland. And keep in mind, the Titus Precon had a Bane of Progress in it, so now there's a whole bunch of new players with that card in their collection, although admittedly, Bane of Progress still hits Copyland. Doesn't hit Realm Sketching though, but yeah, no, Bane of Progress is a little bit insane. Anyways, oh, and I forgot about this one. Savor the Moment is a free mana blue sorcery that has us take an extra turn, but we skip the untap step of that turn. This is just an explore. We draw a card and put an extra land into play. I hope you guys enjoyed that video, and I hope you're gonna go out there and ramp a little bit. Don't be afraid. Just go for it. Go get yourself some lands in blue. Don't need to be so scared of the green players. Honestly, I made this video because the precons were released yesterday. Well, released. The lists were published yesterday. And one of them includes a mass land destruction spell, which is really funny. It's not a proper mass land destruction. It only reduces lands down to 6, but it's still, it's cool. I like having it. But I saw a lot of people then bring up the usual discussion. And well, what do I do against green? You know, they are gonna ramp, and I'm not allowed to play MLD. Well, first of all, MLD against a ramping deck is a stupid idea. They're gonna out-ramp you. That's just it, you know, you're just resetting to state 0, and then they're just gonna do the same thing again, faster than you again. It's not gonna work. What you do against ramp decks is you stop them from ramping in the first place. There are cards that do that. You can stack them out a little bit with like an Aven Mind Sensor, or, you know, there is Confounding Conundrum. I wouldn't necessarily recommend playing that card because it's very mean, but it does exist. What I actually recommend though is to just be more creative with your own ramp. I have been ramping, land ramping, in every single color. Well, okay, maybe not black. Black is definitely difficult, but, well, you know, black is kind of getting there. Anyways, I've just been land ramping a lot in every color, except for black, I guess. And it's been fine. Like, I'm just not really that worried about green. And I kind of, like, want you to not be as worried about it either. So I made a little video. Sorry, I'm rambling again. I'll see ya. Go check out the Patreon. Leave a thumbs up on the video. And I'll see you guys soon. Goodbye.